Hey everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Card making does not have to be difficult, and I'm going to prove that to you in this video. So these are napkins from Ninny's Napkins. This one is Heart of Hearts, with love, love balloons, hearts on a wire, and this one I don't remember the name, but just Google Ninny's Napkins, and in the search bar, search for Valentine's, and you'll get the most recent selection. So with all napkins, you want to pull off the excess plies, and I am simply water cutting the excess off. I might use the I love you on this project, or on another project, I'll save it. Now, water cutting, I just put a little bit of water on a liner brush and go inch by inch or little by little and pull off the excess. When you decoupage this down, the white of the napkin will go clear, but I like to remove as much as possible, just remove that edge. So to prepare the base, I'm taking some titanium, unbleached titanium and white gesso and applying it to my 5x7 card base with a makeup sponge. I'm thinking I could put the butterfly here, combine it with other printables that you have in your stash. My goal in this video is to use things that I have. I have the Crazy Birds, the Tim Holt Crazy Birds. And I usually have a stash of them at the ready, so they're really easy to use on cards. And that's going to speed up the process, but use whatever small stamps you have. Now to add texture, I'm going to use a wonderful tool. This is a piece of bubble wrap. And I'm just going to brayer on the straight up unbleached titanium on here. Get a nice even coat. I'm pressing very lightly. I'm not popping the bubbles. And then I'm just using the bubble wrap as a stamp. This bubble wrap I actually got in a shipment from Ninny's Napkins. So I use everything. The brown paper she puts in there, the bubble wrap that gets put in, nothing goes to waste. And look at the beautiful pattern and texture that has been done here. So now I've decided what orientation, and I'm cutting off these balloons, which allows me, I could move it to this side if I wanted to in my composition. Here I'm just getting rid of some of the excess balloon strings. And then I'm just gluing this down with my fluid matte medium. You can use Mod Podge or whatever decoupage glue that you have. Always being mindful that napkins get very fragile when you wet them. Putting a coat underneath and a coat on top. Before I glue the Crazy Bird on, I'm just going to add some stamping. This stamp comes from a Stamperia set. Happiness is, I think, and it's just kind of a crosshatch. And I'm using red acrylic paint on here and just making it more visually interesting. I don't want just a white background. If you're selecting a stamp or a stencil for this, you want something fairly small scale. So it's more in the background. Here I'm edging the page or the card with black acrylic paint. This just frames it. And it ties into the black that's the ribbon or that's in the balloon, heart balloons. And again, the napkin that I used here is called Love Balloons. And I know this one is available this year. Just adding a little bit of shading here. Now, remember I put a coat of fluid matte medium on top and that turned it into a non-porous surface so that I can colorize the napkin as I see fit and it doesn't wick into the napkin. Now I'm making one of each, but you could make multiple makes, right? In a napkin, I would get 4 clusters of balloons here. So I could make 4 identical cards or Valentine cards the same way. The first one, you're kind of figuring it out. And after that, you are either tweaking or just mass making, and it goes even faster. Now I wanted to add a little bit more, so I grabbed my black archival ink. It's permanent when it's dry, and I'm stamping some script into the background. So we've got the texture from putting it on with a makeup sponge, the stamping with the bubble wrap, the stamping with the crosshatch stamp, and then the script stamp. So there's lots going on in that background, but the background isn't overtaking. I'm happy with the background, so I'm grabbing my gel medium and gluing the crazy bird down. Now, at this point, I didn't paint it first because I was thinking I was going to leave it white. But then I thought, okay, I'm just going to paint the beak. Put a little bit of color in there. And once that was done, I decided that I wanted to paint the bird as well. So I grabbed some cadmium yellow and I mix that with a little bit of white gesso just to soften it a little bit. And I paint the bird that color. So often in my stash, as I said, I'll have lots of these birds cut out, stamped, cut out, ready to go. I might even have the beak painted orange on all of them and I might do that in a stash builder. That just allows me to do faster makes when I'm making cards or pages because some of the work is already done. I don't have to start from square one on everything. Now I'm thinning some black acrylic paint and just painting in the balloon strings. Now with a multi-make, if I was doing this, I could change the color of the bird. I could change the color of the background. You could do a blue background, a teal background. It would look really good with the reddish coral of the colors of the balloons. And I'm just splattering with gold. All that's left to do now is to put a sentiment on here, and I'll show you that later. I grabbed my Sakura Glaze pen. Now, Sakura Glaze, this is black. It is dimensional, and it is glossy. So it's really nice to add 2 cards, but you could use just a Posca pen. And then I grab this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm just going to stamp a heart in the middle of the bird with red. There we go. So let's move on to card number 2. And I'm going to use this hearts on a wire napkin. But before I do, I want to colorize it. And this time I am using Naples yellow with white gesso. Using a makeup sponge, the card, I'm using these mixed media cards. This one's mixed media card. It's 5x7. And this mixed media card, it did not warp as much as the other card, which was just a cheapy Michaels card base. So there is a difference. And if you're putting a lot of wet medium in or the warping bothers you, try the mixed media Strathmore cards. I got that from Ninny's Napkins. So now I'm figuring out how much of this napkin I want to use on this. And I'm liking how that golden Naples yellow is shining through the napkin. So I'm just going to water cut out the parts of the napkin that I am planning on using. And I'm going to use this napkin pretty much as it is with a few tweaks. I want it dangling. I think I can get 2 tiers of the dangles, and I'm going to cut off that third tier. It doesn't quite fit, so I'm going to cut that part off. But I'm not throwing that out. That I can use on an ATC. One of those hearts I could put on an ATC. I can combine them and put it on an art journal page. I just tuck it in the rest of the napkin in my page protector binder. Now this heart is going to be cut off. It's a little too big, so I'm just going to cut it out. And I'm going to take off some of the string. I'm thinking maybe if I raise up the heart, it will look okay. I don't like how it's overlapping. It's still, I'm thinking it's a little too big. But I had all those hearts that I cut out from that third tier. So I'm just going to cut them apart and audition them in place. Don't like the two striped ones together. Ooh, what about this one? This one has a little bit of color and it's smaller in shape. Yeah, that one works. So those are going to be saved for another page or ATC. They're perfect ATC size. Just cutting off the excess. And then I'm just going to put it right there. And it's like it was meant to be. So I'm just getting rid of a little bit more of the excess, but because the background is completely white, I've decided not to. It's going to go completely translucent and you're not going to see it in this application. So I'm putting the matte medium underneath, putting it down, and then putting some matte medium on the top. A trick that I've learned to not, so I don't rip the napkin when it's wet, is put lots of matte medium or Mod Podge on your brush so it just kind of skates over the top. And you can see how the napkin pretty much disappeared. And here's our little edit. And of course, I let that completely dry or use my heat tool. I grabbed my fine line applicator bottle. This is gold paint that's been thinned with water, just regular acrylic, Liquitex Basics acrylic paint. And all the wire and string I am doing in gold. It's slightly dimensional and you've got that shimmer. It adds a nice touch to a card. I have several of these fine line applicators. I have it black, white, gold, and I believe Prussian blue. And I mix them up. They stay in the bottle. There's a needle that goes in that keeps it from clogging. So again, if I was doing this multiple makes, I would kind of do this assembly line. Paint all the backgrounds, glue it all down, maybe change the orientation of what I use a little bit on each card. Then I went and from Pinterest, I got a whole bunch of love Valentine's quotes. I typed them up. I used a bold font. And here I'm putting sending you love on this one. Can you spot my mistake? Look closely. Check out the bottle. So instead of matte medium, I poured gesso on. I grabbed the wrong bottle. So as soon as I realized that, I grabbed a baby wipe, cleaned it up, and then I put the right product, fluid matte medium on. But because everything underneath this is permanent, and I had put a coat of matte medium on top of the napkin, I was able to clean it up. And that's why I like sticking to things, at least in those first layers, that is 100% permanent. It allows you to recover from any oopses along the way. I grab a heart stamp and some yellow oxide, which is a slightly darker color than the Naples yellow. And I'm just stamping some hearts all around the background just to fill in some of that blank space. Stamping this in gold would have looked good as well and would have given a little more shimmer and shine. If you don't have a heart stamp, you could paint the hearts on if you so choose. Back to the first card, I cut out one of those sentiments now that I have them, and I'm just outlining it with my Secura Glaze pen. Love lifts you up. I thought that was a good saying with the balloons. Do a little line work around the bird. And then some line work with the Secura Glaze on this card, just to frame it. I don't attempt to make a perfectly straight line. In fact, I want it to look, I go for sketchy and then I'm not disappointed. I made little envelopes with just copy paper and I taped the three sides shut. And the card just slides in and it protects the inside of the card from the mess that I make while I create. Sorry about that. Here I am just doing some faux stitching around all the hearts. So here is card number 3. Now this one is just a cocktail napkin, and I love the color combination that's here. And this time I'm working on a 6x6 mixed media card base that I got from Crafter's Workshop. So again, it can take the wet medium without warping. And I removed the plies. I am gluing it down. I kind of eyeballed it right in the center. This could not be easier. Basically, I'm just gluing the napkin down in the middle of the card base. Coat on top, being careful not to rip the napkin when it gets wet. Once that's dry, I am going to colorize the border. And I've selected a color that is in the napkin. In that case, kind of a tealy aqua color. You can mix paints, add a little gray to it. Here I'm adding a little bit of Naples yellow. It makes it less aqua, a little more teal. Closer match to that heart in the lower left-hand side. So I'm just painting this out till I get the right shade. And I'm using an angle brush. I always seem to feel I have more control when I use an angle brush for work like this. Once this is dry, I may come back and add another layer of it just to build up to the depth of color that I want. Here I'm shading and I'm using Prussian blue instead of black. Reason being, there's not a lot of black in the actual napkin. And Prussian blue goes really good with the aqua. I still had the crazy bird, so I grabbed one of those in one of my sentiments. And look how cute he looks on the card. So you can see how having a whole bunch of those can just really fast track your card making because you put on one of those characters, which with whatever holiday napkin that you have, and it can go for any season or for any purpose. And this time, instead of a Valentine's quote, I just picked kind of a more general quote, cherish the simple things. And I'm gluing those down with the fluid matte medium. Once that's dry, I decide I'm going to add faux stitching with white acrylic paint, again with my fine line applicator bottle. I really love how the faux stitching looks on here. It lightens and brightens. Now this border, here I chose the teal aqua. I could have made it red. I could have made it yellow. There's peach in one of those balloons. Match it to a color that is already in whatever napkin that you have, and it will work. So you don't even have to really figure it out. Just look at the napkin and make the same choices. Which of these cards so far is your favorite? This one is definitely my favorite. I just think it's so cute. And I will be multi-making this with different sentiments to have in my card stash. I decided to use yellow, cadmium yellow with gesso to paint on the bird. And again, I chose the yellow because there is some yellow in the napkin. Not much, but I'm going to take care of that too. But you could have left him white. So I'm shading with a little bit of orange on that yellow, and I'm just following the lines that were in the stamp. Again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just use what the stamp artist or the napkin artist has already given us. I like how that little heart in the napkin showed up above his head. I wanted to add some yellow. So this heart was yellow, but I just give it a wash with the same yellow I used on the bird. And same thing, this one was just very light, but I wanted to have a little more yellow up there. So I put some gesso down here, and then I paint it with the same yellow. And that just introduces the color word. You want everything to work together, but we have the power to alter it. So here is the first one using love balloons. Love lifts you up. This one, hearts on a wire, sending you love. Love the golden, rich, warm tone of that one. And cherish the simple things. Love that border, the faux stitching. This one, like I said, this one will be a multi-make. Close-ups of the finished product are coming up. Don't forget to let me know which one is your favorite. So go look at your napkins. Can you turn any of them into cards that you can add to your stash? Until next time, go get creative.